You are listening to Designed to Be Awake with Mick Kubiak. Okay, to summarize our last episode, where we moved through and entertained the ways of being of Aries, Taurus, Gemini, and Cancer. Some stories occurred for me that I'm like, oh God, that's so good. So one of my best friends is a Gemini, and she came to stay with me. And a number of things occurred, which thank God, because we have a lot of time under our belt, and she's a Gemini. So actually what I love about Gemini is they don't get offended. They get curious usually. And so she came in, and one thing was she wanted to buy me a coffee maker, and she would have happily paid for it. I don't want that. I make my coffee from scratch, and that's very meaningful for me on so many levels. The smell of the beans, the smell before they're ground, plus the smell of the beans after they're ground. This is like deep for me. It's like a sacred moment in my day. I boil the water. I use a French press. I pour it over slow. I have a whole thing. If I'm going to put anything in my coffee, it's going to be full cream or half and half. It's going to be organic. Preferably, it's going to be in a glass container. These are the rules of the garden. In comes Joan, and she not only wants to buy me coffee, when she gets used to that, she's like, I'm okay, I won't buy you. I get it. Because I was just like, I have as few electrical appliances as possible. And this is how we make coffee in this house, in this garden. And she got it. But she did come with a giant plastic container of something called non-dairy creamer, which is like, it's like death, in my opinion. It is horrible. It's poison in the garden. And like, we're able to joke about this to a certain degree, but I will say the second she was gone, and of course they're massive too. Like, why is it so big? Well, you know why? Because it never goes bad, because it's full of freaking poison. So as soon as she was gone, I just like dump and recycle. One of the great things about Geminis is they are curious, and they think it's funny and interesting that you are the way that you are. That's a Gemini feature. I'm not saying Joan always has that in every situation, but we have it. I think we bring out the best in each other in a way. And that's one of the ways you can tell, because she's also actually very honoring. She's not like, F you if I can't have my non-dairy creamer. She's like, what? Why? Like, what is the problem? I want to know. And so that seems like a really good little anecdote about us working really well together. And we do, I know I'm the flowers for her, and I know that she's the butterfly. And that says so much of the way our relationship unfolds in time. And I'm grateful for that. So shout out to the Geminis and the Tauruses who know how to get along with each other. Okay. And now we are moving on to the second part of this downloaded lecture from the cosmos. And we go to Leo. Let's just look at it as like, this is one soul going all the way through every sign. We got really courageous. We looked down into the world and we're like, I'm going, like this incredible trust and confidence and courage and energy that it took to be like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. I'm going in. Go into that game. Go into that body. Go into that realm, that dimension. Aries, fiery, confident, resilient, unafraid. Here we are. And we land and we just start pushing into the world and going and going. And then, even Aries gets tired and suddenly stumbles into this beautiful grotto, let's say. And it's like, this is nice, actually. I don't need to keep going, actually. I think I'm going to hang out. And that is when we enter the Taurus room. There is abundance. There is beauty. Taurus used to be called the Queen of Heaven. And I believe this is because Taurus is the Garden of Eden. It's comfortable, it's warm, it's safe, it's secure. These are the ways of being of that fully expressed Taurian energy. And you don't want to leave. Like, it's so comfy and it's so cozy and it's wonderful. And there's plenty of food, and like, why would you leave? There's good music. There's usually pretty good art. Like, it's nice. Multiple rooms, probably a sauna. I mean, like, depending, the level at which your Taurus is playing the game of life. And yet, you get restless after a while, right? You're like, oh, I don't know. I'm like a little bored. I don't feel super stimulated intellectually right now. And I need something. And then you start kind of wondering what's outside the garden, who's outside the garden. You're talking to people in the garden. You're maybe like other beings in the garden. And eventually this leads you out and away from the garden. And that's Gemini. You're now in the element of air. It's about communication. It's not so much about physical comfort or physical pleasure. It's not as sensual. It's mental. And it's stimulated by all of that. And I love this idea that that is what dragged us out of the garden. And there we were, like out in the world, exploring and able to be curious and finding other beings to play with out there. And that goes on for a while. And eventually, though, again, even that gets tired and needs a place to rest. Can't go back to the garden. Has to go forward into some other way of resting and keeping safe, and a way that includes the reality of life on Earth without the Garden of Eden, right? You're now out there, you're unprotected, you're tired. You actually do know maybe that there are predators. And so you have to build a home for yourself that feels safe and protective. Cancer, hard shell, soft interior, very life-giving and nourishing. Water, right? Makes everything grow and grow and grow. And so there you are in Cancer, in this kind of protective home that allows you to really be soft on the inside. And it allows for the continuation of life. That's the main thing. And so there's just this nurturing, containing energy to it. Now we move into the next 4 signs, and we start with Leo. So there's a confidence that comes, right, with that Cancer experience of being like, I know how to be in this world, this wild world, and I can keep myself safe, and I can procreate. I am creating life, more life on this planet, in this world. There's a lot of confidence that comes with that ability, right? But if we just stay in Cancer, we're just protecting all the time, and we're not going out of the shell. And so eventually this confidence in like, I can survive here isn't enough. Can we do more than that? And what would that look like? What is more than that? And then we come into Leo. And Leos are here to shine. They're ruled by the sun. They're very confident in their ability to survive. So they're just not about that, right? They're like, what next? Let's perform. And I think Leos can get a bad rap for just being like, me, watch me perform. But what I actually think they're saying is, join me. I'm going to do fully what I'm going to do, and I want you to do fully what you're going to do. And this will be fun. Like there's a playfulness and a creativity to Leo that's so joyful to be around. I have a Leo daughter. I have many Leo friends. I have my moon in Leo. And this is what I understand about that way of being. They are, like, again, so playful, so creative, so funny. They're little performers. And if you know that about them and hold space for them to bring that, it's wonderful. It's so fun. And like I said, I think they can get a bad rap for just wanting to shine and be like, look at me, look at me. And maybe that's just where they are at some point in their life. But actually, they love to shine on other people. And it's a joyful thing. Because a lot of the thing that I'm talking about in these ways of being is knowing, like, what does your friend, boyfriend, yourself, whoever it is we're talking about, need to be their best self? What do you need to be your best self? And Leo needs to be seen. And once they are, and that need is met, the gift of having one in your life is tremendous. They are amazing, beautiful. And every way of being is amazing and beautiful. I'm going a little over the top with the Leos here. Again, probably because my moon is stimulated right now, and my moon's in Leo, and my daughter's Leo. I have 2 best friends who are Leos. I had a boyfriend who are Leos. It's a thing. So if you have your Leos, let them shine, invite them to shine, applaud them for shining. and just see what they give back. It's usually like 10 times as much because it's their nature to shine. And in the human journey, we all have some of this in our chart. We want to show what we can do. And that is Leo. Now, imagine you're Leo and you're shining and performing, and it's wonderful. And then slowly you start to notice that the sun is getting a little less time, and the days are shorter and the nights are longer. And you're just starting to get a feeling like something's coming. And if we come back to the metaphor of the garden, which started in Taurus, and then we left the garden, we created a home for ourselves in Cancer, and now we're performing and enjoying the fruits of that labor that Cancer did to survive. And we're being like, this is why we survived, to express and have fun and play and create and shine. Well, now we have like another thing to contend with, which is not always, like you can't just do that either, apparently, in this cycle that we're in. That creativity of Leo, extending from that protectiveness of Cancer, right? Like that life preserving, gave Leo that moment to shine. And Virgo is going to be a moment where that shifts, it stays very creative, but it's like a different type of creativity, a witnessing of the earth. Virgo's an earth sign. And again, with the metaphor of the garden, we're now going to try to recreate the garden on this dimension. We've left the Garden of Eden, and we're now going to try to make it happen here. And Virgo is that kind of observing consciousness. They are detail-oriented like you wouldn't believe, right? If you have some in your life, if you have some in your chart, there's this ability, and it can feel quite mincing. So Virgos can get this bad reputation for being hypercritical and complaining all the time and needing everything to be just so. But again, once you understand like, oh yeah, that's an incredible gift. That's their superpower. They do know what needs to go and what needs to be amplified and emphasized. And in this metaphor, the way that this came through for me was this idea of like, oh, they're going to take the earth and they're going to get really clear about where things go. These are seeds. We should save those seeds. This is not, we don't want this. This was very toxic to the oak tree. So let's see what we can do to control the growth of that. And let's also make sure we get the nuts off the oak tree the minute they hit the ground so that we can preserve them. So like there's just this kind of a consciousness to Virgo, right? And it comes through in everything. If you have a Virgo hairdresser or Virgo nail tech, or if you have a Virgo CEO, right? There's just a different kind of energy. And they learn and they track what they've learned. So I think Virgo is one of the most brilliant signs in the Zodiac. And again, because they're ruled by Mercury, just as Gemini is, but it's a very different version of Mercury, they're going to preserve what they learn. And they're going to remember. Earth is a retentive element. Where to plant this thing, when the sun did that. They were probably involved in the building of Stonehenge and, all of those Mesolithic structures, right? Like they're like, no, it'll be exactly like the sun will shine through this and hit this and this will all be, because they've been tracking. They know, they're trackers, and they're growers and harvesters. They know what to harvest. They know how to prepare the ground after they harvest so that the next planting season is successful. So we've moved through the first half, the lower half of the wheel here, Aries to Virgo. And I think that's significant. There's a way in which you can really feel how this is the time in our soul when we're really like mastering just existence, right? We're like, wow, I can do this. I can live here. I can incarnate. I can enjoy a feeling of home and belonging and comfort in Taurus. I can leave the safety of that. I can create a home for myself in this wilderness. I can celebrate, joyfully celebrate in Leo. And then I shift into Virgo with an eye toward a different kind of knowing and abundance and preservation. So to me, those first 6 signs are really about us becoming whole beings who can survive on our own. And naturally, this segues into Libra, where we're like, well, I'm all that. Where are other people who are all that? And how do I connect with them? How do I enter into relationship with another? And there's a real yearning to enter into relationship with another in the sign of Libra. There's also a playfulness to it with Libra. And they're often like the scales are what signifies Libra. And I think that's right. That's right. There's this learning. They know everything the Virgo knows because they've been through that, right? They know there's some detail to life that needs to be observed. And they are measurers, just as Virgo is, but they're measuring in a different zone. They're measuring in the realm of air, which is like communication and connection and play. I think there's something playful about all the air signs. So Libra is looking to be in relationship. And one of the like stereotypes about Libra, right, is that they're always in a relationship and they never take a break in between. And that's not what they're here for. They're not here for taking breaks in between. They might. I'm not, again, you could be a Libra with other things going on that make you different from this. The purpose of this journey through the signs is just to give yourself an opportunity to feel this way of being. And then you can look at your own chart and be like, oh, I see, because I also have my North Node in Aries. That's why maybe I'm not so typically Libran. But anyway, so you're in the way of being that's looking out for another person and who wants to dance with that person and wants to do it beautifully and well. Just as Venus is ruled by Taurus, so is Libra. But again, it's a different expression of Mercury where it's a little more mental and it's much more mental. And it's much more inclusive of others. You know, it really is about touching base with other people and getting to know people. And the scales also represent that there is a right mix for Libra, right? So in this 7th sign, we're looking for the person who balances us just right, with whom we can really create more than we could if we were on our own. And bringing that capacity that Virgo has to see the details of things, to notice these little permutations, and to be like, oh yeah, this, not that. That's very much Venus too. It's discernment. She's the goddess of love. And if you're in Taurus, there is more of this, like the Venus that you see who's just bountiful, come and partake of this bounty. Whereas in Libra, she's a little more of an assessor. You know, she's like this, not that. And so in relationship, Libras are assessing and feeling into, is this it? Are we creating beauty together? Are we creating harmoniousness together? Are we able to achieve a state of harmoniousness? They can appear very indecisive to people, like can't make up their mind. And sometimes that's true, but actually they're just so much more discerning in their decision making than most of us are, that it takes time. They're really feeling into it. They don't know the answer, and they're not going to pretend they do. Once they do, they will move on from something. They will. And sometimes they'll end up in another partnership right away, and that's okay because they learned from that last one, and now they're going to pick this one, and they know why. Yep. So that is Leo to Virgo to Libra. Oh, and then we come to Scorpio. Something wicked this way comes. I say that knowing that most of my Scorpio people would be like, that's right, bitch. And to go from that airy desire to preserve harmony and balance and beauty and connection, it's really kind of a steep drop into the 8th sign, where to me, Scorpio is a water sign. I think of it as being like dropped into the middle of the ocean, sinking all the way down to the bottom and having to forge a life for yourself on the ocean floor. There's a stillness to it, but it's water and it's part of something much vaster. It's dark. You know, in the Western Hemisphere, it's the darkening of the year is really quite apparent in Scorpio. And I think it feels isolated from the sun. It feels lonely sometimes, and yet it is also deeply feeling. And I mean that in terms of, sensitivity and emotion. There's a deep, deep feelingness to Scorpio that is hard to reconcile with life and other human beings and just sort of the way things are. Deeply, deeply compassionate, and they see so much and feel so much. And that's why they become kind of like warriors. And at the most unconscious level, they're represented by the scorpion, right? Which is a fighter, like it's just geared for fighting, except for this one unfortunate situation where it could go to sting you and stings itself instead and dies from its own sting, which is, nature's way of saying, you're not done yet, sweetie. You got to keep going, right? Like that, this design, it's okay, but it's not the best. So Scorpio, which is also connected with this ability to transform deeply, is also associated with the snake, which you can imagine as the next iteration of the scorpion, and one that it is still venomous to protect itself, but it sheds its skin, which is interesting. So it is moving in a more powerful direction because the ability to shed your skin and be born anew, I mean, that's an incredible gift. And they're amazing mothers. They circle their eggs and coil around them, or I've seen images of this, and that's how they like protect them and keep them warm. The risk is that they'll keep strangling you after you're born. So that's got to be watched for. But again, this is another iteration of adaptability to survive in a difficult situation, which I think relates it back to Cancer a little bit. The situation of the Scorpio way is that it is difficult. It tends to present challenge and obstacles, and all of those, because it's in the sign of Scorpio, is saying, how deep can you go? How deep can you reach inside yourself to transform? And the final iteration of the Scorpio is the dove. And I think that's right. Or is it an eagle? I think I've heard both, actually. It might be eagle and then dove. But, you get the idea of eventually when Scorpio is fully realized, they actually are like incredibly generous people, deeply understanding people. And it just takes a long time to get there. Because they've borne more darkness than the rest of the zodiac. Again, I see them like at the bottom of the ocean trying to survive. So it harkens back to the water sign of Cancer. And the only way to survive apparently on the ocean floor, I guess, is to transform and maybe eventually the phoenix rise up out of that with all of that still contained in you. The thing is, you're rising up away and out of that state of consciousness from darkness to light. Yeah, I think that will move us nicely into Sagittarius, which is so different, right? It's this fire sign energy. But remember, as we move through the doors of the zodiac, we're taking all the wisdom of the signs before us. This doesn't mean Sagittarians are wiser than Aries. It doesn't. We don't know how many times we've been through this whole wheel. But I think it's great for the purpose of this learning, and also that you can now actually play this out in your own self and in your relationships with others, of this journey from Aries all the way now to Sagittarius, following Scorpio, like, whoa, it's like a meteoric rise into this like fun-loving fire sign who, hopefully carries the deep compassion and wisdom of Scorpio within it. I want to stop here. And I will leave us at the bottom of the ocean, on the ocean floor, in the darkness, with the potential for profound transformation. And the learning of Scorpio is the gifts that are needed to survive on the ocean floor. And then that naturally, like all signs do, evolves into something else. But you can take that wisdom with you, that deep feeling where you can just feel every quiver of the universe kind of penetrating to the ocean floor, and you need to hunker down and not get shaken so much. But of course, yes, we have to move on. And in the third episode, we're going to move from Sagittarius to Capricorn to Aquarius to Pisces. And we'll be right back at Aries where we started. And I am looking forward to taking you guys through those 4 ways of being. And that feels like really the title of this 3-episode offering is Astrological Ways of Being. Because again, what I really want to emphasize is that we all have access to all these ways of being. We have some that are emphasized in our current birth chart, but don't cut yourself off from really understanding the other signs, both because you can access that power and wisdom of each sign anytime you need it, and you can take so much better care of the people you love if you work with them and not against them. Thank you so much for listening, and I will see you in episode 3. Thank you so much for listening today. This episode and every episode would be impossible without the brilliant Chase Coughlin, the organizational genius of Maya Young, and of course, all of you. Please hit subscribe, follow, leave me a review, sign up to be notified of all the things. Email at mickkubiak.com. Just put your name in that little box, hit that little button, and you'll get all the info. Thank you so much, and I will look forward to connecting with you next week on Designed to Be Awake.